Be ready. Start. We do not agree. The scope of a contempt proceeding is very different from that of the pending main case yet to be heard and disposed of in future. Besides, the respondents in a pending case are at a disadvantage if they are called upon to meet the merits of the claim in a contempt proceeding at the risk of being punished. It is, therefore, not right to suggest that it should be assumed that the initial order of stay got confirmed by the subsequent orders passed in the contempt matter. We therefore hold that the High Court should have first taken up the stay matter without any threat to the respondents in the writ case of being punished for contempt. Only after disposing it of, the other case should have been taken up. It is further significant to note that the respondents before the High Court were raising a serious objection disputing the claim of the writ petitioner. Therefore, an order in the nature of mandatory direction could not have been justified unless the court was in a position to consider the objections and record a finding prima facie in nature in favor of the writ petitioner. Besides challenging the claim on merits, the respondent was entitled to raise a plea of non-maintainability of a writ application filed for the purpose of executing a decree. It appears that at an earlier stage, the decree in question was actually put in execution when the parties are said to have entered into a compromise. According to the case of the state, the entire liability under the decree read with the compromise has already been discharged. The dispute, therefore, will be covered by Section 47 of the Code of Civil Procedure. It will be a serious question to consider whether, in these circumstances, the writ petitioner was entitled to maintain his application under Article 226 of the Constitution at all. We do not want to decide any of these controversies between the parties at this stage, except holding that the orders passed in the contempt proceeding were not justified, being premature, and must therefore be entirely ignored. The High Court should first take up the stay matter in the writ case and dispose it of by an appropriate order. Only thereafter it shall proceed to consider whether the state and its authorities could be accused of being guilty of having committed contempt of court. Before the High Court, appellants urged that before any contempt proceedings could be initiated, it was necessary and appropriate for the division bench to examine the prayer for stay, or else the appeal itself might become infructuous. This did not commend itself to the High Court, which sought to proceed with the contempt first. We are afraid the course adopted by the High Court does not commend itself as proper if, without considering the prayer for stay, obedience to the single judge's order was insisted upon at the pain of committal for contempt. The appellants may find, as has now happened, the very purpose of appeal and the prayer for interlocutory stay infructuous. It is true that a mere filing of an appeal and an application for stay do not by themselves absolve the appellants from obeying the order under appeal, and that any compliance with the learned single judge's order would be subject to the final result of the appeal. But then the changes brought about in the interregnum in obedience of the order under appeal might themselves be a cause and source of prejudice. Wherever the order whose disobedience is complained about is appealed against and stay of its operation is pending before the court, it will be appropriate to take up for consideration the prayer for stay either earlier or at least simultaneously with the complaint for contempt. To keep the prayer for stay standby and to insist upon proceeding with the complaint for contempt might in many conceivable cases as here cause serious prejudice. In this view, Lord Denning quoted, I am of the opinion that the fact that a party to a cause has disobeyed an order of the court is not of itself a bar to his being heard, but if his disobedience is such that so long as it continues, it impedes the course of justice in the cause by making it more difficult for the court to ascertain the truth or to enforce the orders which it may make, then the court may, in its discretion, refuse to hear him until the impediment is removed or good reason is shown why it should not be removed. It is a strong thing for a court to refuse to hear a party to a cause, and it is only to be justified by grave, grave considerations of public policy. Thank you.